Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us again here on Fearless Females. So, the person that we're interviewing today is Kathleen Godfrey, and she, like a quiet stalker of her for years. She's in my industry. She actually does my job. She's a financial advisor, and she's a woman, and she works with women just like I do. And I think the thing that I thought most as I was chatting with her is just, where was she when I needed mentor or an example? You know, I came into the industry a little bit later than she did, and she's been here since, early days, again, with being the only woman in the room, a lot of times working with a lot of men and surrounded by a male-dominated industry in the architecture that's kind of set up for men. So what I say with finances all the time is that this world was built without women in mind. And we've had to kind of, both on the financial advisor side and on the client side, make our presence known. We've had to show up. We've had to look for people who get us, who understand our story, people who look like us, people who are showing us that you can do it. And sometimes as women, we've had to do that when we're in the middle of a divorce or suffering a loss of a loved one. And I just love that Kathleen is so supportive towards women in this industry. As I am, our voices are united and wanting to lift and help women succeed and grow and take control of their financial future. My gosh, the day of, we're going to let them handle it. We'll let somebody else take care of our finances. We're not going to sit in the driver's seat of our financial future. That day is gone, overdone. Today's woman is going to take charge of her future. And I love that Kathleen just brings all of that to the table and says it like it is. I hope you love this episode. Let's get started. So I have Kathleen Godfrey with us today. She is the founder of Godfrey Financial Associates. And I have to let you know that I've actually quietly been stalking Kathleen for like months now. I look at all her posts. She's just so empowering towards women, and she has such good messages. I'm really excited to get to talk to you about your journey and how you came to be where you are, Kathleen, and just like some of the more empowering things that you see in finances for women. So thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
So my first question is always the same. I'm a reader. I love any and all suggestions. What is your favorite book?
Well, that's a good question. I have 4 books listed that I have read multiple times. They're all nonfiction. So the first is called The Power Code by Katie Kay and Claire Shipman. Just a great read. Years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I met Kathleen Burns Kingsbury for the first time, and she had just written a book, How to Give Financial Advice to Women. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading it thinking, she wrote this about me. It was great. And I have since given copies of it away to male colleagues of mine. Another book that I've read multiple times, Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art, not to be confused with The Art of War. Mm-hmm. The War of Art. It's a quick read. It's a life-changing book. And then Simon Sinek, Start with Why. The whole thesis of the book, people don't care what you do, they care why you do it. Mm-hmm. So,
and why it matters to them. I love that. And I love Kathleen Burns Kingsbury. She was awesome. And is
awesome.
Yeah, just really cool things to say. Simon Sinek is one of my favorites. I just love, he's got such a way of of helping you see the human in everyone around you, not just a lot of times you get so focused on, growing your business and making things better and stuff like that. You forget there are actual people involved in helping you get where you're going, and
Exactly.
taking the time to really focus on those people and help grow them as well, I think is super important. And especially to
And I
those of
think when
us.
you lose your why, I think you've really lost your way.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially to those of us that are interested in empowering and helping women, a lot of times we surround ourselves with women in our work too. And remembering that we need to put conscious effort into growing them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I love those suggestions. I've read some of them, but some of them are on my list now.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get where you are today? What do you do? Did you know you wanted to be a financial advisor when you were 2? Like, I always am curious as to how people came into this.
No, but I will say at a very young age, I was intrigued by money and what it could do and what it meant. So I've worked with money my whole professional life. I was a senior budget analyst for the state of New York. It sounds more impressive than it was. I loved what I did. And I worked in the education department. So when a school district wanted to issue a bond, I was on the team that went down to Wall Street, and we met with bond underwriters, and I was fascinated by the whole municipal finance angle and how things are financed in the public sector using private money. Very interesting. Anyway, I did that for a while, and then I got downsized. I had been recently widowed. I was a single mom. I had 2 kids, and I got downsized. And it was jarring, to say the least. And I thought, holy crap, I got a mortgage and kids to feed, and I've got to figure out what my next act is. And it occurred to me that having been widowed, it's a pretty scary journey. And I could help other women make better decisions. And what I learned was nobody teaches us about money. I mean, whatever you know about money, you learn probably from your parents. They learned from their parents, and they learned from their parents, and they learned from their parents. And if we go all the way back to when we were trading, goats and camels and wampum and shells and beads, it's a means to an end. But most people don't really understand how money works. And I had a good grasp of how money works. And I thought, if I never try this, I'll always regret that I didn't try. So I literally hung out a shingle in 1996. This is my 30th anniversary in business. And I thought, if I don't try, like I said, I'll regret it forever. So very humble beginnings. But here we are 30 years later, still going strong.
That's a really scary place to be, with 2 mouths to feed and a mortgage, and saying, did you know what you wanted? Like, did you take the test?
I found out that I needed to be licensed, and I got all my licensing under my belt, and I had a choice to make. I could either join an insurance company or an existing firm, or I could do it myself. And I interviewed at a bunch of firms, and they were as bureaucratic as the state of New York was in terms of, and I thought, what, I'm going to try it on my own, because, I have an MBA, I've studied business. How hard could it be? I thought, how hard can this be? Surely I'm going to have clients and prospective clients lining up down the street to get in my doors. And Yeah, that didn't quite work out the way I envisioned. It occurred to me very early on, I have to go find some clients. How the hell am I going to do that? Oh my God, I have to pitch myself. I have to sell myself. I don't know how to do that. And so one of the very best decisions I made in the very beginning was I enrolled in the Dale Carnegie Training. And because really my sales experience up until that point was Girl Scout cookies. And, I was pretty good at it, but this was a whole different situation. So every Friday morning from 8 to 10 a.m., I was at the Dale Carnegie training for, I think it was a whole year. And we had group exercises and then a one-on-one coach. And I learned how to stand up in front of total strangers and describe my vision and what I did and how I could help them. And, as time went on, I got better at it. And I remember my sales coach, really nice guy. His name was Neil. And he said, I want you to take a Post-it note. And on a Post-it note, I want you to write exactly this. SW, 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 next. I said, okay, what the hell does that mean? He said, you really need to get this. Some will, some won't. So what? Someone's waiting. Next. He said, because you're going to meet a lot of people and some will want to work with you and some won't. And so what? Someone's waiting to meet you. And it never, ever occurred to me that someone was actually waiting to meet me. But it helped me kind of weed through people who, I'm sure you know, there are people who can't say no and they string you along. Oh, yeah, I do want to meet with you.
Yeah.
Maybe next month, or let me talk to my spouse, or, and they string you along because they can't say no. And I got better at getting people to say no. And I would say, if this isn't a good fit, just say so.
Yeah.
It's all right. There's someone waiting. And in the back of my mind, I kept that thought, someone's waiting to meet me. And anyway, I went through this training and I became a lot more confident in, presenting myself to people and meeting with prospective clients. And, I had very humble beginnings.
I found that sometimes the sales tactics they use, there's a lot of people that look very similar in our industry.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
usually not us. They're usually older white male men.
They're male, pale, and stale.
I've heard that one before. And I find that a lot of the sales tactics that they use don't work for me because I'm not salesy. I'm
right. Neither am I.
Yeah.
Neither am I.
Did you find any, I don't know, just inconsistencies in the sales training you were given, or did you find that it
I
worked?
didn't get any sales training because I was completely independent. And so I don't really know what sales training looks like outside of this Dale Carnegie thing that I did. It was, it's really pretty generic. There were people from all different industries that took this course. But I do remember the sales coach saying to me, one of the problems with financial services professionals is you give it away. You give it away all the time. You go through a whole presentation with a prospective client. You do a whole proposal, an asset allocation, and a financial plan. And then just as you're halfway through presenting it, the prospective client says, oh, did I mention my brother-in-law just started at Merrill? So this is great, but I kind of promised him I would give him the business. And, and you're left kind of like, oh, okay. gee, that was a waste of time. And so this trainer said to me, you should charge for your time. Your time is valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And if people want the benefit of your expertise, you should have them pay for it. And so from the beginning, I did that. And so if someone decided they weren't going to follow through and implement their financial plan using me or my services, at least I knew I got paid. And it did a lot to kind of boost my self-confidence and how much I valued what I did.
Mm-hmm.
And we still charge consulting fees.
Yeah. And because you're right, it is a lot of work, and putting together a financial plan and having them go, yeah, I'm not really interested in using or DIY. That's what I love. I could do this myself.
Yeah, I could do it myself. But thanks for giving me the template.
Kathleen, tell me, we talked a little bit about the investment that you made in the training. Was that the best investment that you've made in yourself, or is there something else you can think of that was
that's one of the best. The other one is I bought, after renting commercial space, I bought a building.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really smart move. And I've spent 30 years investing in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so when there's a seminar or a training opportunity, I made sure to take advantage of that. And I got a lot of different perspectives, not the MetLife perspective or the New York Life perspective or the Merrill Lynch perspective or the UBS perspective. I got a good, I think, more rounded because I didn't have a big corporate company behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think has served me well.
Yeah, it more independent, so you're able to take the best ideas from the industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like that. Obviously that's where I come from too, that independent space.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea of not having to meet a quota that interferes with what your clients really need.
Right. And not being beholden to any big corporate entity.
Mm-hmm.
That to me, because I know a lot of these companies, every January 1st, you've got your quotas. If you want to keep your desk and your phone and your assistant, this is how much you need to produce. And that's a little daunting in the beginning of every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about the worst advice someone ever gave you? Have you ever gotten some really bad advice?
Oh, yeah. So I joined the Financial Planning Association of Northeastern New York early on. And, I would go to their monthly meetings, and there was one gentleman there. His name is Frank. And every month he would say to me, "You're never going to make it, Godfrey. You don't know what you're doing. You should come and work in my organization. I'll show you how it's done." Month after month after month after month. This is what I heard. "You're working with women. They don't have any money. You're never going to make it." And I just remember thinking, you're a jerk. You're such a jerk. And somebody said to me, he wants to ride on your coattails. He sees that you're a rising star and he wants to work. He wants you to work for him so that he can take a big override. And I said, what the hell is an override? I didn't even know and they said, "Oh, well, you're going to bring in $1 of revenue and he's going to take about 40 or 50 cents of that and you're going to get the rest." And I thought, why would I do that? That doesn't, but then I learned that's the industry, that's very typical. You join a firm and for every dollar you bring in, they take 20, 30, 50 cents, and they give you what's left. And then from what's left, you're expected to pay your assistant, you're expected to pay your overhead. And so you're making someone else wealthy. I don't know. I thought, I'm going to take a chance on me and see how wealthy I can make me. And it did take a while. Like I said, I didn't have any company training or, a training department. My learning curve was longer and steeper than it probably would have been. But at the end of the day, I knew that what I had created was all mine. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing quite as rewarding and gratifying as knowing that. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I heard if I had $1 for every time a man said to me, "You'll never make it," I'd be very, very wealthy.
Yeah. I find it interesting that they're like, well, women don't have money.
Right. Except now they all got the memo. Yeah. They all got the memo from, all the studies that have been done and the McKinsey study that came out. Like, dudes, women have money.
Yeah.
You really need to start paying attention.
Yeah,
and how long have they been shouting this? Like decades.
Yeah.
Decades.
Talking around, not paying attention to her voice.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I did a presentation to a group of advisors a couple of years ago about how to communicate with women so they won't leave you. And seriously, the men in the audience were dumbfounded when I told them, within a year of becoming widowed or divorced, about 80% of women are going to fire their advisor. Mm-hmm. And where do you think they're going? They're coming to people like me, mm-hmm. And I've got an all-female team, and I've been widowed, I've been divorced, I've got a certified divorce financial analyst. We've been on these journeys, and there's a different kind of empathy that you bring to the table that a lot of men don't get. Mm-hmm. And some of them, to their credit, have changed their approach, but most of them have not. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really hard to discuss finance with people that don't make you feel comfortable. It's a really hard subject to talk about. And if you're talking about it with someone who's spouting numbers and statistics at you rather than trying to understand what you really need, it's a really difficult place to be in and uncomfortable as a woman.
It is. And frankly, and this kind of circles back to the Simon Sinek, your why. If you're going to explain something to me with an 18-page report filled with graphs and charts and technical data, how about you just look me in the eye and say, gee, you're not going to make it, or yes, you are going to make it. But if I'm not going to make it, if I'm not on track, tell me how to get on track. Mm-hmm. In plain English. I'm a pretty well-educated woman, but when you start using all the jargon and the industry speak, it makes it difficult to connect as a human being. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what women are looking for, a human being.
Yes. Someone that cares about them and understands where they're coming from and understands we as women, truly, we haven't been given a whole lot of information in the financial space. I mean, we weren't even allowed to own credit under our name until 50 years ago. So it just, the system wasn't set up to help us. And now we're opting out of that system into, I want to talk with someone who looks like me, acts like me, has been through what I've been through.
Well, the whole financial world was built by men, and it was built for men. And now that women are players, it's very slow to evolve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about a do-over? Kathleen, if you can kind of think back to something like a situation along your path or along your career that you would like 100% go back and do again differently if you had the knowledge that you have today. Obviously, if we went back and did it, with the same knowledge, we'd do it the same way. But is there somewhere that would help our listeners kind of think, oh, that didn't work for her, but this might?
Well, I would do, a few things differently if I could go back. I would hire an assistant much earlier than I did. Mm-hmm. Money was tight and I was nervous about cash flow. And it took me a while to hire somebody. And I learned that, you really do need to take some risks if you're going to be in business. And there's nothing guaranteed. I would have hired somebody earlier. I had the way to do it. I did have a line of credit open and available to me, but I guess I was always afraid of going into debt. Mm-hmm. But I had the leverage and I didn't use it. So, if I could go back, I would have done something earlier.
Probably would have helped your trajectory. You're thinking like it would have helped you grow faster.
And I think I had all those, that you'll never make it voices in my head that, there is a fun outcome to that whole thing. So after many years, like 10 years, I won a big award. My local Chamber of Commerce has this Woman of Excellence awards luncheon every year, and I won. And it was really exhilarating and very affirming. Mm-hmm. And I flew my mother was 85 at the time. I flew her in, my kids were there, and I'm up on stage and I'm giving my acceptance speech. And I look out into the crowd, 650 people were at this event. And I look out into the crowd, and honest to God, there's Frank. There's Frank in the audience. And we locked eyes for, 2 or 3 seconds. And I got to tell you, it was a delicious moment. Yeah. The guy who told me for years that I would never make it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, this feels really good.
I did it. Yeah, it's really hard to drown out those voices because you're feeding them to yourself as well. Not only are you getting them from outside people, but you're like, what if I don't make it? What if I'm not good enough? What if, blah, blah, blah. So how did you find ways to drown out the naysayers?
Well, I started I don't know. How did I stop the voices? I found a couple of mentors who were trustworthy people, and they were not in the financial world, mm-hmm. but they gave me some good advice about how to tune out that negativity. Mm-hmm. I started hanging out with more women in the financial world. I joined WIFS, Women in mm-hmm. Financial Services. I got very involved in that organization. And it was very validating to be with other women who were experiencing exactly what I was experiencing. Mm-hmm. The sexism and the misogyny that is so prevalent in the financial services world. But in the beginning, I didn't have any sponsors or mentors and no one to show me the ropes. I didn't understand a lot of how it worked. And over the years, I've just learned that the financial services world is really run by a lot of mostly mediocre white men, and they don't have a clue. And I just said, I'm going to forge my own way. I know what the compliance rules are. I know the guardrails that I have to stay inside. And if I don't try it, I'm always going to regret that I didn't. I might crash and burn, but like I said, if I never tried, I would always regret not trying.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and now what you said, 30 years later?
30 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we actually have a waiting list of potential clients. So that's very gratifying.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like asking this question to non-financial people, but I'm very interested in what your answer is. If you could high five yourself for a really great past financial decision, what would it be?
Well, I alluded to this already. Buying a commercial building, that was a good financial move. But hiring a team of rock stars, I literally have a team of rock stars. I learned how to hire slow and fire fast, and that took some doing. But when it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. And trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, you're frustrating yourself and you're frustrating the employee. So learning how to bring people on slowly, take my time, and if it's not a good fit, end it quickly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a really something that people don't tell you about going into an entrepreneurial type business, going into business for yourself is that you can do the work really, really well. But part of it is you have to know how to manage the business, how to hire people, how to manage people, how to work well with others, how to inspire and grow a team. Like that's part of what you do. And it's a big part.
It is. And you also have to stand for something. You really do. You got to stand for something. And I try to ask that of people. What do you stand for? And for me personally and professionally, I stand for dignity and freedom. And there's no dignity when you're not financially stable in your life. And there's no freedom in that. So if you want dignity and freedom, you got to have your financial ducks in a row, if you will. You've got to know where you're going. And that dovetails so beautifully with what I do every day, is to bring people to have the sense of dignity and freedom in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I always say that your financial life underpins everything that you do. It underpins how you raise your family, how you show up at work, how any of those things. So what scared you the most when you started it out? And I'm anxious about having you pick just one thing because you started out with in a scary place. Like everything would scare me if I started where you did, but does it still scare you?
A lot of stuff scared me. I remember the very first day on the job. It's a little hokey, but I put my key in the door. I had rented a small office, and I put my key in the door, and I said this little prayer. I said, "Dear God, please make sure there's a safety net, and please make sure someone's holding it." And with that, I, came into my office. And for me, what scared me was after 3 years of working very hard, I took all of my financial stuff to my CPA, and she looked at it and she said to me, "Kathleen, I just have one question. Is this a hobby or a business?" And I said, "What?" She said, "How many years are we going to go into the IRS with negative numbers?" And it was jarring. It really shook me. And I thought, I have been working so hard. You have no idea. She said, "It doesn't show." And I got in my car. I cried all the way home. And I thought, there were just 3 words. I'll show her. I'll show her. this is no effing hobby. I'll show her. And something really switched in me. And I don't even remember, Lorie, if I had to remember exactly one thing I did, but I just started thinking, I'm going to show her. I'll show her. And I went to see her after the 4th year.
Uh-huh.
And she said, let me call you in a couple of weeks. And she called me and she said, what happened? I said, what do you mean what happened? I said, you made me so angry and so upset. All I could think about was, I'll show her. And she kind of laughed a little and she said, well, you did show me. Wow, what a year. She said, now you better sit down because I have some news. She said, you owe the IRS money. You finished in the black. Now you got to pay taxes. And I went, wow. I was so excited. And I remember standing in line at the post office. This was way before e-filing. And the post office was open late on April 15th. And I stood in line and I had my envelope with my check. And I was so proud of myself. And then about a week later, she said, you should really think about incorporating because there are some distinct tax advantages. But I'll never forget standing in line at the post office with my tax return and feeling very, very proud of myself.
Yeah.
And I never looked back from there. But it took me, when I told you my learning curve was long and steep, it took me 3 years. If I had worked for a major company or I had, any of that kind of corporate backing, that would have never happened. I would have, maybe my first year would have been difficult, but it did take me a longer time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting because it does take some of us a longer time to kind of get to where we're meant to be. But we do tend to end up where we're meant to be if we stay on the path and believe in ourselves and follow some of the things that, you find mentors, you find coaching, you try and gain as much knowledge as you can around what you want to do. We do tend to find ourselves where we're meant to be, but sometimes it takes us a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's all bad.
I mean, I burned through a lot of savings. It's, but, once I figured out how to get to the other side, there was no turning back.
I love that you're like, I'll show her.
I'm telling you, it was like she lit a fire under me. And I was insulted and she did apologize. She said, I probably shouldn't have been so harsh. I said, no, if you had sugarcoated it, I might not have heard it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. What about unique challenges because you were a woman? I'm sure you faced some. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there's a lot of sexism that's baked right into the financial industry.
Give me an example. I know where I see it sometimes, but what are you?
Well, I mentioned that I got very involved with WIFS in the beginning, and we decided there was a core group of us, like 5 or 6 of us, women who worked in for different companies, and we wanted to get a local sponsor and, to help us with overhead and, recruiting members. And we went to a brokerage general agency, and the second in command, the executive vice president, said, well, why don't you just have a bake sale? And I thought, wow. I mean, it took a lot for me to not say what I was thinking. But yeah, like for instance, when you open a joint account, the default is that the man's name comes first. If you use a lot of financial planning software, the default is it's the husband is the primary breadwinner. And so a lot of things are set up that way. And when you when you do it differently, sometimes, even on a tax return, it's assumed that the husband's name is going to come first. It just little things that are insidious in the world we live in. And I'm hoping in my lifetime that I'll see that flipped. It is starting to change a little bit, but yeah, the idea of a woman being successful, wealthy, who's intelligent, and oh my God, she doesn't have a man in her life. She doesn't have a spouse. I mean, it's not something that a lot of men can relate to. And those are my clients.
Yeah.
Successful women who may or may not have a spouse. Most of them are the primary breadwinners. And they know about money and they make good decisions and they have agency in their lives. And that's what, they have dignity and freedom because they have money and they understand how it works and they're making good decisions for themselves and their families.
Yeah, I love that because I love the way that you phrased and looked at that is like they're able to make good decisions for themselves and their families because they've got good information. I feel like the past has been a series of whether by design, whether by choice or by design, we've kind of been kept, as women have kind of been kept out of financial education.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, in my lifetime, when I was much younger, a lot of women, when they went to college, it was to meet their future husbands. It was just expected that you would get married and start a family. And, look at how far we've come. Look at how, and then you could also on the other side of that, you could say, look at how far we still have to go.
Yeah.
When you look at, what's going on in the headlines now, what happens when men accumulate a lot of wealth and how they protect themselves and protect each other from terrible things they are involved in. I don't know, like one of the proudest things that it's like 25 years ago, once I crossed over to being profitable, I decided to donate at least 10% of my annual profit that my company has at the end of the year to nonprofit organizations that are serving women and children. And 25 years have gone by and we've donated over $2 million.
Wow.
My little company with, that's mind blowing to me. And I'm really proud of that. And I tell people all the time, there is absolutely, positively no downside to generosity.
Yeah.
There's none. And if I can do it, why aren't bigger companies doing it?
Yeah. Well, and it also shows kind of like you give a woman a successful business, but she earns a successful business with discretionary funds to spend, and you spend them in ways that improve society, women and children throughout society. Like imagine if more women became successful where they might spend their money
Mm-hmm.
and the good
Exactly.
things. Yeah.
Exactly. I know they wouldn't be, I don't want to go down that road, but it is tricky when you're a woman. One of the things that I found difficult was, not having a spouse at home and not having support at home. I was doing it all. And, childcare. I mean, I would bring my daughters to the office frequently. And, they kind of grew up in the business. And both of them are successful entrepreneurs in their own right.
What an example, too. Yeah, That's something else that I found through research on women in business and entrepreneurship and finance and all that sort of stuff that I love to delve into is that you need an example of someone being successful. So what an example you've provided for your own daughters and for those who are in the financial services industry.
Mm-hmm.
When I started out, I had no direct examples of women who were being successful financial advisors. I thought that women worked in the office and the men were the financial advisors. I thought that's what happened. And so I love that there are all these examples now of women doing these things that I think are so important.
Yeah. It's very encouraging. And I really hope that instead of 15 to 20% of financial advisors being women, that we're going to be closer to 50%. It's a great career. It's just an amazing career and gratifying on so many levels.
Yeah. It makes you feel good about yourself and your contribution to the world. And the contribution to women who then take those, that freedom and dignity that they found in taking charge of their finances and share it with those around them through, different charitable organizations, so on and so forth. Yeah, I think it's a great big circle, which is really rewarding. I feel you, Kathleen. That is exactly the way I feel.
Yeah.
What is the thing you are most proud of, Kathleen?
Well, I'm still here. I defied the odds and I'm still here. I think, our philanthropy is what I'm most proud of, though. And, when I see my logo on all of these not-for-profits websites and the kudos that I get, it feels good. Mm-hmm. And it's opened doors for me. A lot of people know who I am. Not that I'm famous or anything, but I call it making deposits to the bank of good karma. And I've got a nice hefty bank account in the bank of good karma.
I love that. Any advice for a young lady who's just kind of starting down this path that you're successful at that can help her be successful like you? Is there something you would tell her?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, get as much training as you can, learn as much as you can, network with other women in the financial industry and outside of the financial industry. Build yourself a little village, how that saying, it takes a village. Make a village for yourself. Seek out a mentor. Learn the rules of the game, okay? And just remember that the company that you work for, if you work for a company, isn't always going to have your best interest. You're working for them. You're bringing in revenue for them. If you've got the gumption, strike out on your own. There's nothing like knowing that it's yours. Everything is yours, the good and the bad. Okay. Yeah. But, learn the rules of the game, network, and, find your tribe, find your village, and reciprocate. Okay. Mm-hmm. Reciprocate, give before you expect to get. Be there for other women. And because it does go, that saying, what goes around comes around, is really true. Some of the best people I know, I met through WIFS, through other organizations. You got to give, and I promise that you will receive, because that's the way the world works.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the idea of women helping women too, just kind of helping them grow, helping them move forward. Obviously, I love it. That's what my whole podcast is about.
That's right. That's right. And, just trust your gut. Trust in yourself. You know a lot more than you think you do. And with a lot of women, there's a hesitation to take action. Well, I got to wait until I'm ready. I got to wait until I know more. I have to wait until whatever. And, sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith and the net will appear. It did for me.
Yeah. And that was a scary step to take, but so glad that you were able to take it.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, those early days, I got through them. But what's that saying? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So
yeah. There are days where I'm like, well, it hasn't killed me yet. So
yeah, absolutely. You never know who you're inspiring.
Oh, that's really true. Yeah.
You just never know. And I actually had a younger woman approach me maybe a year or two ago. And I was at a conference and she knew who I was. Mm-hmm. And she said, you're really inspired me to get into this business. And I was like, wow, thank you. Wow. It was heartfelt, and it really made my day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that, and you don't know how far or wide your voice goes and who's going to hear it.
Right.
So I do think it's important to live what you believe and kind of let your voice be heard.
Yes.
You just never know what's going to happen just from that one small act.
That's right. Exactly.
So if I have a young woman who wants to ask questions or talk with you a little bit more about how you did this, how does she get in touch with you?
Well, she should connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message.
Perfect.
And I would be very thrilled to reach out to that person.
Oh, thank you.
And kind of give them some direction. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed this.